Hi guys, Showmofo here, back with some more awesome Robocraft fun for you. And this is going to be Realising the Vision Feedback and Gameplay Part 5. Now, hopefully we're going to be having a look at my NubMech1, having a little bit of TDM while I talk about this, the Chapter 7 that has been out for a while now, and I'm just going to be covering this, and I thought I'd take the NubMech1 out, seeing as it has quite a nice little ejector seat bit of fun, and I want to make the most of that, especially if pilot seats are in question for their future. So I'm going to take a look now at Chapter 7, the final chapter, posted by Mark Design Jammer at FreeJam, and of course all of the links to all the chapters will be in the description of this video if you want to go and peruse them for yourself. So let's get down to it. And so this is Mark speaking in the gameplay feedback forums in Chapter 7. Firstly, my apologies for the delay in posting this chapter. Since releasing chapters 1 to 6, we wanted to focus heavily on discussing the roadmap and getting the work well underway so that we can deliver some of the great things to you as quickly as possible. I'm happy to say that a ton of the things are well underway now. I can tell you that painting cubes is tons of fun and feels quite satisfying. It's especially cool colouring the functional parts like wings and guns and the large robot masks. This is the final chapter and we'll aim to give you some information about the timing of things. And in all caps we have here, important note, this may all change. Game development is difficult and Robocraft is a live development and we want to be able to react to things and what you want. So this is more of spelling out what is in our head. So again, nothing here is written in stone. This is what they're planning, but it is of course, as we all know from FreeJam, subject to change is a factor. Okay, so he's saying here that we've split the work into manageable phases. So, Phase 1. Plan is to launch this before Christmas, if we can. Wow, that would be awesome, getting a nice update before Christmas. I just hope it is a nice update. And under Phase 1, they're planning the upgrade of the game engine to Unity 5. Use of multiple CPU cores for better performance, along with optimized rendering and optimized physics. Painting cubes with paint, fill, mirror and pick tools working. The first set of extra shapes, and loads more to come in later phases. All game modes unlocked to all users, with an additional BA Leagues button to play in leagues becomes optional. That's fantastic. It will be awesome. I'm so glad. Really, it is a testament to just sticking in there. If you've created a bot and there is an update that happens and you've got a free bay, keep your bot, because there is always the chance that that bot may become viable again after an update if it's been nerfed in a previous one. I will be so glad to be able to get all of my lower tier bots back into the battle arena, and I am really happy that the league will be an optional choice for us, because in all honesty it kind of put me off playing Battle Arena for a while, after having Battle Arena become my favourite game mode. To be limited to the 30 mil cap and then also to be thrown into the leagues meant that I had no choice but to play competitively in there. And so being able to take bots in there to see if they're any good and have a little practice with them, and also to play games without any pressure and just have a bit of fun. So I think that is fantastic, and I cannot wait for Phase 1 to kick in, and hopefully they're planning to launch that before Christmas, so that's great. Okay, and then we've got I suppose it's kind of a subheader of Phase 1 stretch goals. Free garage slots for all. Any who purchase them with game currency, Galaxy Cash, or via a robot will get their GC back. Now that is fantastic. I think the free garages will really help. I know I've got a lot and I'm looking forward to getting a lot of GC back, but I think as well as that luxury of being able to have a couple more bays to experiment in and to have free bays to tinker around in and keep bots that you like really does add to my kind of enjoyment and experience as a whole while playing Robocraft, that obviously others who don't have that game currency, the Galaxy Cash, to spend on the bays miss out on, and are in a way limited to the 3 bays that come with the game. So I actually think that's quite a good move. Okay, there's going to be a CRF 2.0 where users can buy as opposed to rent robots with RP unless they have cosmetics on them. So that will be awesome. I presume that the purchase price as opposed to the rent price will still be a lot higher, but the fact that people can again buy them with RP, it's another reason to grind and play the game, and also it means those who want to stick with the free-to-play model have got as much access as everybody else. So I think that's a really, really good move. Okay, here's the one. Pilot seat no longer required on your robots. Now, it really doesn't give us any more information than the pilot seat is no longer required on our robots. It doesn't tell us if something else will be required on our robots. It doesn't tell us much about anything. I'm guessing from this that the pilot seat will become a cosmetic. I really do think they should keep, if not the pilot seat as a block being the key component, I do believe there should be a key component block that is required to protect to keep you alive. Sort of taking you down to that kind of last block is such an awesome part of the gameplay. And I know a lot of people don't like ejector seats and have problems with them, but I think it's a legitimate tactic. It's a quite sensible option if you've got the CPU to be able to build in some kind of ejector seat, and of course ejector seats can be as simple as the cube with the jet on, or it could be quite a nice one with some proper steering and maybe even some weapons on, and it adds a lot to the gameplay. And if that gameplay is lost, that'll be a little bit of a sad moment for me in the history of development in Robocraft, as a lot of the fun I've had is, you know, escaping with an ejector seat, trying to then stay alive, trying to either get back to the shield or a healer to regenerate, or possibly even trying to get to the enemy CP to help win the game. And it's a really fun aspect of the game for me. So the pilot seat is, at the moment, everything else quite happy with. The pilot seat still a concern for me. Okay, and the next one under Phase 1 stretch goals is robots match made by RR and player skill, except in leagues which will remain based on league and star ranks. Okay, so they're not going to bring the tiers in. We're still going to have the fluid kind of tiers with the matches made by the RR and player skill. Okay, I hope there's leeway in that. I mean, I imagine there must be a fair amount of leeway. I really would like to see the tier bar back, just as a guide to where you're at with your bot. And I still think there is merit to having unskilled players playing against skilled players, because it gives them something to aspire to be, and it also increases the difficulty on the learning curve slightly. And in games where the learning curve is too easy, or the game mechanics are too easy to cope with, it's often less satisfying to play the game. Okay, Phase 2 launching ASAP in the new year. Maybe split into chunks, but that's all being worked on at the moment. Weapon select, put multiple weapons on your robot. Now that seems like a really interesting thing. I quite like the idea of having an alt-fire weapon, and I think it will add to the strategy of the game, and again it's giving us more design choice. So that I'm quite positive for that one. The CPU costs of functional cubes will be increased for more strategic depth and difficult decision making on which functionals are to put on. Okay, so yeah, that means a lot of my bots are going to need reworking. I've got 44 plus bays at the moment, so yes, I imagine that's going to break a lot of people's bots, and that's never good. But if for the whole of the game and for its betterment and development, if that's a positive thing and it works out well, I don't really have a problem with going back in and reworking bots. Sure, it will be sad to destroy old bots that worked well, but if the game has changed, then they're probably going to need tweaking anyway. And I imagine with such fundamental changes being made to the game, even without this change, a lot of the bots would need reworking. They're increasing the max CPU at all player levels, and Megas also are getting a CPU boost. So actually, depending on what your bot is like and how these figures are matched out, you might not have to rework bots at all. You might still have to if what you have in terms of functional cubes pushes the CPU higher than what they increase the max CPU to. But it does give you a chance that maybe some of your bots will not be affected too greatly by these last two ideas. The SMG is going to be reworked with projectiles that must be lead, no more hit scan. Fantastic. Fantastic. That really does up the skill level of the game. For people who don't know, hit scan means basically if your cursor with your sight is over a target and you click, then you've already hit that target. The projectile fire that you see in the game is a graphic element that actually has nothing to do with it. It's just a kind of afterthought to give you an idea of weapons being fired. Whereas this will mean that the projectiles will be fired, and it will be when the projectile hits. So if something is at a reasonable distance away from you, you're going to have to lead the shots to hit where they will be rather than where they are when you fire. And I think that's a great thing for realism and for upping the skill level, and also taking a bit away from the fact that the SMG is just kind of an all-round kind of multi-functional and multi-skill level kind of weapon that people can just spam. They're also going to get rid of the 6-gun limit and real strategic playstyle differences between smallest and largest SMGs. So they say here, think the difference between an Uzi and a Bren gun. So the smaller the SMG, the more kind of weaker short range, and then larger weapons will be obviously higher caliber, higher fire rate, that kind of thing, I presume. Plasma's also being reworked. Round robin firing. Small plasmas firing at quite a fast fire rate, large ones slow fire rate, but a large, very impactful, they're saying here. Really different playstyles coming from different types. So that's actually nice that it means that with these changes, lower tier weapons are suddenly back in the mix for higher tier craft, because actually they're not just less damage, there is a difference to how they operate and how they work. So it depends on the kind of bot you're building rather than the tier of bot you're building. I think that's quite a nice change. Rail is being reworked too. The projectile that must be led, no hit scan. Projectiles causing fat capsule sharped holes in robots. That sounds very nice. Again, adding to the skill level of rails significantly, and also making it a bit more interesting for the gameplay involved and the skill level. I think those changes to the weapons sound quite nice. Tesla's being reworked as well, so only active when selected via weapon select. So it becomes de facto FPS melee weapon. So that's nice. It's going to up the skill level for use. It's slightly going to take away from its defensive capability if it can only be used as a melee weapon. So lots of people who've put them on their weapons to stop things sneaking up and bumping into them, causing them damage, that will no longer work unless you're quick to switch out to your melee weapon. I hope the weapon select system is nice, especially if you're going to be able to have each of the weapons. So presumably that's what we've got: SMG, plasma, rail, nano and Tesla. That's 5 weapons to switch between, so it'd be nice to see a cycle through and a quick select, kind of how they have it in TF2. That would be really nice. But again, we can't really speculate on those until they come out. Let's see, Nano's been reworked and a power bar will be added. Nanos will discharge power and will have to wait to recharge when it's empty. Large nanos powerful heal rate, but very fast power discharge and slow recharge. Small nanos vice versa. That's a little bit, it's worded slightly strangely, but I think what they're saying is with the heavier the nano, or the higher tier rather, the longer it will take to charge up, but it will also have a greater output, whereas small nanos will presumably take less time to charge up, but will also have a significantly lower output for healing. With the removal of the 6-gun limit for all weapons, so you can increase benefits the more you add, but with higher CPU costs you need to be careful with your choices. That's fantastic, and I've got to say this must all be down to Unity 5 and optimizations they've made in the game, which is great, because of course the previous 6-gun limit was simply down to the frames per second and not trying to lag up the game with all the projectile fire and the graphics going off and stuff. So it'll be nice to see that it's a real choice between what you're doing with your weapons, not just that this makes sense for redundancy and for your optimal fire range and limit. They're going to have a new weapon specific TBD. Robot ranking removed, no more marks or tiers, and many more functional parts to come. And there's a little note here saying all player match made by CPU, since small SMG and large SMGs are both viable in battle, but support completely different playstyles, both with pros and cons. And this change allows us to begin to add more game modes and functional parts at a faster rate in later phases. So far it's all sounding good to me, apart from the pilot seat. Okay, Phase 3. And it's Phase 3 Plus, so presumably, I mean, these guys are always thinking of things to stick in the game and changes to be made. So who knows what will come after this. And of course, none of this is set in stone, so it could all just change overnight due to feedback or decisions made by the dev team. But this is what they've got listed. Our priority for future phases is split into chunks so we can launch frequently, and to make sure we deliver things for new users and for existing users equally as much as possible. The priority of these is very much undefined at present, and we're still thinking about which ones to do first. The main priorities are as follows. Tutorials and new user progression system to control a new user experience and ensure they have fun in the first hour. Fantastic, this is very much needed. Of course, what they really need if they're going to introduce tutorials is a period of stability where they don't change anything fundamental to the game, so the tutorials do not very quickly become obsolete. Clans, again we're being told about clans and big social chat and friend improvements. I'll believe it when I see it. The clans and the social stuff have been talked about, at least since I've been playing, which is coming up to, it's probably about a year and a half, maybe a bit more. And it's always been the buggiest aspect, and we've never had the clans introduced yet. And I think that would make the social stuff is really important, I feel, and can help with the development and the retention for players in the game. Many more shapes, larger shapes to provide much more styling of robots. Lovely stuff. Decals are very nice, and one of the previous discussions of the decals was the idea that you could design your own, which I would just love. I think that would be really fantastic, although I imagine for mods that might be quite a new aspect for us going around and having to make sure nobody's putting up offensive decals. More weapons and functional parts, excellent. These kind of updates are really nice. TDM 2.0, okay, in brackets. We've noted your concerns about this, and we're still discussing this one. We think we need an easy to understand, less punishing team PvP game mode for new users, but want to make sure it also has depth and strategy, so we'd love to hear your ideas. Awesome. They were talking about putting respawn into TDM, and I think a lot of people were quite hesitant about that, if not openly kind of anti having respawn in the TDM. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I mean, TDM is something I've only been playing again recently, simply because of the cap to BA, and especially at the high tiers with the Mega, I'm not so sure I enjoy that kind of follow the Mega kind of gameplay that is involved in the kind of the T10 side of things, but who knows, we'll have to wait and see what happens with these changes. Non-combat game modes, this is significant chunks of work each, but the changes above allow us to get cracking on these within the next year. We need to decide which one to do first. Which would you like first? Well, that's awesome, but they're saying which one would you like first, but not actually giving us a list. So I presume you'd have to check out on the forums and see what they're discussing. The only one I know really is a race mode, and I really do hope they put some thought and depth into that. It would be quite nice to have a kind of race mode, and I believe also a race mode would really increase the learning experience for people, because you'd have to be able to build fast yet stable craft and get used to manoeuvring them very well, which will improve your gameplay in battles dramatically. One of the things I notice and tends to serve me well is, where possible, if I'm out, say, in a hover SMG, keeping on the move while you shoot targets is a huge buff to playing, as opposed to people who stand still when they shoot. and then try and just turn the camera around. You can run circles around people, so getting people into modes like race modes would actually improve their gameplay in the battle as well. So I hope they have lots of little modes like that, where people are playing another game mode, but actually it's part of improving your gameplay overall for the PvP. And really, I think this is some of the tutorials, like video tutorials would be great, written tutorials would be fantastic, but if they can find ways to build game modes that are actually tutorials to the other harder game modes, the PvP ones, that's a far better way to do it, because it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm sitting through a tutorial. It just feels like you're participating in a game mode, and then you don't really notice that what you're doing is educating yourself on the gameplay mechanics for later on. Okay, party mode. I've missed one. Improve setting up and playing in platoons. That would be awesome. And party mode. Again, it doesn't really say much on party mode, so I can't really add much to that. They're saying here more things for Megabots. Really want to improve the experience of those playing with Megabots. Yes, if you've watched my channel, you'll know I had a first little dip into Megabots, but they're very expensive to get out. The battle modes and gameplay for them is very limited. I really don't enjoy the experience of TDM with Megabots, where everybody just gets behind a big massive bot. It limits the gameplay, and that's so much. So I really do hope they do stuff with Megabots. Hopefully, if they're able to get rid of the 6-gun thing, which was all previously to do with the game engine being able to handle stuff and not making the battle just turn all laggy and horrible for people. If they can improve the engine enough, maybe we can have proper Megabot v Megabots, and I'd far rather see that kind of game mode than throwing in this kind of massively OP team player into a battle as they have in the current state. They're upgrading the physics to allow for realistic collisions between robots and pushing, etc., which will in turn allow us to do more game modes that exploit this new functionality. That will be amazing. That would just be so much fun. If you can start building to use your craft physically, I think that would be so much fun in Robocraft. That would be absolutely awesome, because it gives you so much to work with for fun little bits of gameplay. They're working on localization so Robocraft can support all languages, server improvements to increase the stability of the servers in general. It's going to be an incredible ride between now and the end of Phase 3. We really hope that many of you will come on the journey with us. Well, yeah, I think I'll be sticking around for all the changes they make. Usually what happens is they announce a change, and I think, oh no, this will be horrible. And then they make the change, and I'm like, oh, this is horrible. But then after playing it for a bit, it's still a great game, and I still have so much fun playing it. So far, they haven't done anything that has stopped me playing the game. They've put me off things. Sometimes it feels like I've kind of been steered towards something I might not have otherwise participated in, such as the introduction of new game modes and stuff. But generally speaking, this is still a fantastic game, and I have a lot of fun playing it. I really enjoy the community, I really enjoy making videos on this game, and yeah, I haven't done it in a while, but I'm looking forward to building stuff. And in case you're wondering why I haven't been building new craft and stuff, it's very much because I've been aware that these changes have been due out. And so if we're looking at changes where you're going to have to rebuild or tweak craft, I've kind of thought, I've got 44 bays, I've already got a load of stuff I'm going to have to rebuild. Why add to that? So that's why I haven't really done any kind of new builds as of late. Simply for the fact that by the time I build something that I'm happy with, a patch might come out suddenly where I then have to bin it off or tweak it or just redo it from scratch with the new mechanics and the new cubes and things. Now, I didn't really notice anything in here at all about the cubes and the armor system, about whether they're going to keep it as it is for the time being, whether they're going to go to the model of having one cube type, which I think would be a huge mistake, or whether, I mean, there's a lot of stuff being discussed on the forums about this. I hope they don't. I can understand them getting rid of all 11 tiers of armour, as especially with paint being in the mix now, it's really quite unnecessary. But I really do believe they need a heavy, medium, light armour, just for design elements, just to build bots in a way that kind of makes sense, and it's fun learning how to do that, and it adds to the design of things. So I really do hope it's a positive outcome when it comes to what they decide to do with the blocks of armour. Anyway, guys, we're nearly up to half an hour, and I think covering those notes is plenty. I hope I've managed to fit some gameplay in there. I hope you've enjoyed the gameplay you've been watching while I've been reading this out to you. I'd love to know your thoughts on Chapter 7 and these plans that we've got for the game, and what your input is on those. Hope you are all still enjoying Robocraft and having plenty of fun. Hope everybody's looking forward to Christmas. I'm just really quite excited, not just for presents, but for what's happening with the game, and for the fact I'll be able to have a bit of time off and play a bit more, and hopefully play some other games too. Hope you've enjoyed that. I'll see you all next time. Of course, if you like the videos, please do like, comment, and if you haven't already, subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.